You think an argument ends when someone stops talking? That is your first mistake. Most people believe that silence signifies defeat or a lack of ammunition. They think that if they keep pushing, keep explaining, and keep refining their logic, the other person will eventually have that magical aha moment and finally see the light. You tell yourself that if you just phrase it correctly, if you just find the right analogy, if you just stay calm enough, the misunderstanding will dissolve. You are wrong. The moment you decide to stop explaining is not a moment of weakness. It is a moment of total, terrifying clarity. It is the instant you realize that they aren't failing to understand your point. They are choosing to ignore it because your truth contradicts their comfort. We spend our lives trapped in the exhausting cycle of trying to be right in the eyes of others, desperate for that elusive validation. We offer up our intentions like sacrifices on an altar, waiting for the other person to say, "I see now, I was wrong." But that person is busy rewriting the history of your interaction to protect their own ego. The harder you work to explain yourself, the more you confirm their suspicion that you are desperate for approval, and the less they respect you. We are taught from childhood that communication is the universal solvent for all conflict. If there is a problem, we talk. If there is a rift, we explain. We treat words like tools designed to bridge gaps. But words are not always bridges. Sometimes they are walls. When you are dealing with someone who has already cemented their opinion of you, your words are just bricks they use to build their barricade higher. Think about the last time you found yourself spiraling in an explanation. You were probably flushed, heart racing, grabbing at past memories to justify your current actions. You were trying to prove your character, your integrity, your decency. Meanwhile, the person across from you wasn't listening to understand. They were listening to respond. They were waiting for a pause so they could deliver their counterpunch. The entire dynamic isn't about truth, it is about dominance. They don't want to hear what you meant, they want to keep the version of you that makes them feel superior or right. The moment you see that, you realize that every sentence you add to the pile is just another piece of ammunition you are handing them to use against yourself. The delusion is that we can control how we are perceived. We spend thousands of hours and millions of words trying to curate our own reputation in the minds of people who are not interested in reality. You think you are clarifying, but you are actually just begging for a verdict that has already been delivered. They have already decided you are the villain or the incompetent or the selfish one. And once that box is closed, no amount of evidence will ever convince them to open it back up. In fact, the more you struggle against their label, the more you seem to confirm it. If you explain too much, you are defensive. If you stay quiet, you are hiding something. If you get angry, you are unhinged. If you stay calm, you are cold. It is a rigged game, designed to keep you spinning in circles until you are too exhausted to realize you are being played. The trap is the belief that if you just make them understand, you can stop feeling the sting of being judged. But the sting isn't coming from their judgment, it is coming from your need for their approval. You are looking for a key to a door that doesn't exist, and the frustration you feel is the sound of your own ego hitting a wall of reality. It is a bitter pill to swallow. Some people aren't meant to be your audience. You are wasting your life performing a monologue for an empty theater, or worse, for a critic who came to the show already determined to give you a bad review. This is why the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop. Not in anger, not in a huff, and not to punish them. Just stop. Stop the flow of justifications. Stop the "let me explain what I meant." Stop the frantic need to bridge the gap. When you stop explaining, you take your power back. You are essentially saying, "I know who I am, and I no longer require your confirmation of that fact." It is a quiet revolution. When you stop defending yourself, you stop living in the shadow of their perception. You realize that the only person you are truly accountable to is the one you see in the mirror. If they believe you are the bad guy, let them. If they believe you have failed, let them. Their opinion of you is none of your business. It belongs to them. It is their burden to carry, not yours. This realization is the end of the war. It feels strange at first, almost like you are leaving a void where there used to be noise. You will be tempted to go back to explaining. You will feel the urge to just say one more thing to clarify the situation. Resist it. That impulse is your ego trying to reclaim control. But true control is found in the ability to walk away from the narrative they have constructed about you. You start to see how much energy you have been hemorrhaging on people who never cared to see you clearly in the first place. You stop being a character in their movie and start becoming the author of your own life. You finally get that the person you were trying to convince was never the other person, it was yourself. You were trying to convince yourself that you were good enough, that you were justified, that you were worthy. But you don't need a witness to validate your truth. The moment you internalize this, the weight lifts. You stop needing to win the argument, and you start focusing on winning your own peace of mind. This is the threshold of true adulthood. It is the moment you stop seeking external validation and start anchoring yourself in your own reality. The silence that follows is not empty, it is peaceful. It is the sound of someone who has stopped seeking permission to exist on their own terms. You are no longer the supplicant at the court of public opinion. You have walked out of the courtroom entirely. And the best part? The people who genuinely love and understand you never required an explanation in the first place. The ones who demand it are the ones you were never going to win over anyway. Let them stay trapped in their version of the story. You have a life to live, and it's far too short to spend it arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. The truth is simple, and it doesn't need a defense. It just exists. And for the first time, you are finally free enough to let it stand on its own, without saying a single word more. Keep your mouth shut, keep your truth. They don't want clarity, they want a villain.